It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, January 23rd. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that says you win some, you lose some, right?
I think there's more to it than that, but okay.
Yes, we will get into all of that all on today's show.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there and happy Monday. I'm Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with the brilliant Russ Cohen, who's on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That's where you'll keep up with our new episodes and Flyers news. You can email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We've got a mailbag coming on Wednesday, so get those questions in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. We are going to recap the back-to-back against the Red Wings and the Jets. Plus, we've got our Nemesis of the week. Locked On Flyers is free and available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So subscribe. You'll get all of our episodes here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Plus, we're over on YouTube, so subscribe there as well. When last we left you, listeners/viewers, we had a question remaining as to whether or not they would send Sam Ersson down to the Phantoms and what to do with Felix Sandstrom coming back from his conditioning stint down there. And they did pretty much what we thought they would do, which was the easy decision, sending Sam Ersson down and activating Felix Sandstrom. I think we thought that's what would happen, but maybe what we guessed wrong on is which game Sandstrom might play in. He wound up playing versus Winnipeg, and we had Carter Hart versus Detroit. What do you think of that decision?
Yeah, it was a little odd. I mean, at this point, I don't know if it mattered a lot. So I wasn't really taken aback either way. What what I am taken aback on is this situation's not going away. Like it's the next time they have to call him up, they're gonna have to send him down again or send Urson down again. And I get it. Maybe it'll be later in the season, but this is not a great situation unless they plan on losing him at some point. So that's the part. And look, there's some
When you
fans
say
that
losing him, which
losing
one?
Sandstrom, sorry,
Yeah.
because someone will claim him. But I mean, look, there's fans out there that are like, well, after the loss, lose him anyhow. Who cares? Well, you do care because there's other situations going on where you might need both of those guys still this season. So I look at it and I say, right now it solves the problem. But like with this team, it never solves the problem fully.
Yeah, I think you look at what happened with Sandstrom in the game against Winnipeg, and you're like, if Urson were there, maybe it would have come out differently, based on Urson having basically an undefeated record. But at the same time, Sandstrom did play well in
Yeah, I
Lehigh
mean,
Valley, so
Urson
it
couldn't have
is
made his.
difficult.
It is difficult. Urson couldn't have made his team start like a better team. Like that
Correct.
would have not been in his control. So I don't think it would have mattered because, like you said, Sandstrom kept him in that game. Like he made it
Hmm.
possible. So yeah, I right now Urson is a little better for sure. But again, the Flyers have so many issues like this that just they keep putting a band-aid on it. That's all they keep doing.
Yeah, well, I think this will at least get the team through the All-Star break
Mhm.
and, maybe reevaluate when that bye week is over and All-Star weekend is over, if circumstances have changed to any degree. But there's we're a little past halfway in the season, and to ride it out like this and have to make the decision in the off season is not horrible either. It's only a few months of games,
Yeah,
so
you'll see though. It's easy to
I
say
know.
now, but
It's hard. The whole
it,
thing is very difficult,
it
and
is.
again, that's why I'm not the GM of the Flyers. But, so for those 2 weekend games we watched, it's really interesting, I think, in these 2 games because I think they were both really emblematic of what this team is this season and the
Hmm.
identity that this team has created. And, that was a huge part of the goals of this season, was to create an identity. And I think they're starting to get one. I really do. That this is a team that's going to work really hard, take advantage of opportunities when they can, except maybe on the power play sometimes.
Or at the
But
beginning of games, but
yeah, but I think that generally it's a team that has tenacity, and it's a team that's not going to give up in any games. But when they're, outskilled and face a team with better speed, they're just not going to win. And I think that's kind of to be expected.
well, I don't know. I look at it and I say, this is as healthy as they've been all year. And if they felt like at the beginning of the year they could compete on some level, then they should feel like they could compete on some level now that they have all these players and they know what they're missing, and we don't need to go through the laundry list. So my only issue is I do think the identity is they play harder. I agree with that. But they also have an identity of not showing up at beginnings of games. They also have an identity of getting lost in their own systems like they did for the first 3 goals of the Winnipeg game. Just because Winnipeg showed some speed, the Flyers were lost out there. They didn't know where to go on the ice. They didn't know how to defend. They didn't know they couldn't even get set up defensively half the time. And that's a little worrisome at this point of the year. I looked at that and I said, that bothers me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the weaknesses here in terms of adjustments, that they're not a team that's nimble, that can adjust quickly, because they have a very specific defensive structure and instructions on how to play. And sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it isn't. When it doesn't, they are a little slow to adjust sometimes, where sometimes it takes until the next period or
Right.
even the next game. And I think it's similar on the offensive side of things, right? Where they sometimes switch up the lines in the third period a little bit to try and get something going, but then go back to the usual lines to start the next game. Like they never carry
No, they don't
adjustments
carry it
into the
over.
next game.
That's true. And I don't have an answer for that. Um, but they're still making some of the same mistakes. So I know we have a laundry list of good and bad. One of the things that I think is still bad is I wonder when why you have Tony D'Angelo out late in the game when you're looking to come back. I get that there's this perceived offense and he is a good passer, but he keeps getting victimized on these empty net goals, and a lot of them are his fault. Like are
Yeah.
absolutely his fault. And yesterday against Winnipeg, same thing. So I kind of look at that and I'm like, why? Why don't you put Ivan Provorov there? You know you're going to get a better result. At least defensively, you're not going to give up that empty netter, and maybe the puck stays in your zone, and maybe you can come back in the game. So maybe you can give me an answer for that.
Yeah, I do think that if you're gonna have 2 defensemen out there in that situation, versus 4 forward, 1D, I think that Provorov and Cam York are the 2 guys that should
Right.
be out there.
Yeah, and it just seems simple to me. I think it's proven itself out over time. I did a little looking um, as to how Tony D'Angelo's doing. And this doesn't really count defensively. This is just offense, which is, what he's good at. and he is the 24th best offensive defenseman in the league. And a couple of guys who have played less games, fewer games, are right behind him. But he's also 16th most in power play time. So the opportunity is great, and he's still cashing in a little bit, not enough. And so that's why, like, I've done this, but they're just, they don't change it, and I don't have an answer for that. So
Yeah, the empty net situation for the Flyers and the empty net situation on the other side of things when they're facing it is an interesting point of discussion,
yeah.
and we will start with that coming up next.
Today's episode is sponsored by Athletic Greens. I started using Athletic Greens because I wanted better gut health, more energy, optimized immune system, and hated taking pills and vitamins. And I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, and focus. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's lifestyle friendly whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, or gluten free. Athletic Greens contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, or artificial anything while still tasting good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Russ, we were just talking about these key situations. So, when the Flyers have an empty net against Winnipeg trying to tie it up. And then we also had the end of the Detroit game, where the Flyers were the defensive side of the empty net situation. And you can't help but think that, this is something we've talked about throughout the season. They've had moments where it's worked, obviously, on their end, but I think that this is an element of special teams that really is a problem for the Flyers on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, you know who your personnel is. At this point in the year, you should know who the right personnel is. And they don't seem to know. And this is the part where I put some blame on John Tortorella, but not a ton because he didn't build the roster. He gets to use that excuse this year. And to his credit, he hasn't much. So, but it's also on the other coaches too. Like, I am not giving a pass to the other coaches of the Flyers. It's easy to just say, well, Rachel, they're not a good team. Well, but these guys are getting paid to at least improve things so you could see a path for next year. And I don't see that path yet.
Yeah, you look at that Detroit game, Carter Hart playing out of his mind all
Yeah.
game, so close to a shutout. And then, the team just kind of turtles in front of him. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, they give up a goal. I'm not putting that on Carter Hart at all because he was just under siege for an extended period of time at the end of that game. And I just think that that's a repeated pattern, that their ability to clear the puck in those situations just is in no way, shape, or form consistent. And I think that they just lose focus when the other team kind of steps it up a notch, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then at the other end of things, they just aren't able to do that themselves. Like I just did not see Winnipeg panicking in any way, shape, or form.
No, no, but it's a good thing to talk about because I remember that one of the things that John Tortorella talked about was going to be protecting Carter Hart. Um, that's a failure. Like his expected goals against looks like it's worst No, not worst, fourth worst in the league. Uh, and this is again usual suspects: Karel Vejmelka, UC Soros, John Gibson, and then him. And usual suspects meaning these are the teams that usually are in this list. I don't think
Right. That don't have
good
necessarily good
defense.
defense in front of the goalie. Right.
Correct. And I don't think Hart should necessarily be in there. But the way they play, he is there. His save percentage on shots on goal is, just over 90%, 909. Not great. Now his save percentage on unblocked shots is 949. So there are times where you could see that he is, bucking the trend here and doing really well. But again, the problem is he is in 34 games. Yeah, the numbers are just too high against him. Like just the shots against him are just too high. And I don't think they've done anything to remedy that.
No. And, you look at the situation in Detroit where they give up that goal. You look at the fact that even though it was Sandstrom against the Jets, similar situation where, they did such a great job killing the 5-on-3, really good PK work. And then immediately thereafter let up that fourth goal.
Yeah.
And with the, and you can put some of it on Sandstrom for sure. It was not a good goal for him, but at the same time they couldn't clear the puck either. They couldn't keep that momentum going to clear the puck, and that's the concern here is that with a team that is growing, you do give them a little bit of a pass because they're building a system still here, but you would have liked to see those sorts of things cleaned up a little better by this point.
Right. And I do need to point this out because a lot of what the Flyers do, we're seeing with the Canucks. And so Rutherford did talk about now the 23 to 26-year olds that's what he's looking to get. This has become really a talking point in the league. It doesn't give you any greater success having guys at that age, having them below that age, having them above that age. It's always going to be about the
It's all
mix.
individual development, and
Right.
different guys are on different
But
timelines.
but
You
teams
can't
now are
pick an
using
age.
that. Right. But teams are using that now to try and give artificial hope to fan bases. And I think the Flyers are better off than the Canucks, but that's not really saying much, to be fair. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
not. They're in a bad way too. But I want to point it out that it has become a thing, and that's what Chuck Fletcher sort of grabbed onto. And so while you're selling that as your brand, well, I mean, then you should be selling us that all these guys are in all the key spots and doing all those key things, but that's not really the case. Some are, like Cam York's doing a fine job. Like Cam York is doing a really good job. That is the case. But you have other guys that they are veterans and they aren't the young guys in those key positions. So I here's the big overriding question that I have for you and I ask myself. Do they know at this point in time who they want to take with them for next year? And do they know who they absolutely want to try and trade? And will it happen? And I don't think they're fully on board with those answers. And that's what's
I
bothering me.
I don't think so either, but I also think that because of the situation that Chuck Fletcher is in right now, that especially for trade deadline, I mean, he says this all the time, and all GMs say this, that they'll take a phone call on anybody,
Right.
right? But at the same time, I think that he's got it in his head that he's got to make some big moves or clear the deck a little bit
Right.
in this upcoming off season. And so is he going to take advantage of opportunities to clear the deck that maybe are guys that he would want to hold on to anyway? And so I think that they're just kind of in a weird wait and see mode in terms of making trades and trying to see what the offers are out there before making those decisions. I don't think it's necessarily that from a hockey perspective that they don't know who they would want to take, but I think from an overall management and roster situation that they're not quite there yet.
Okay. I mean, the one thing And this is
At
to
least I'd like
me.
to hope that.
No,
let's
no,
say.
I think your thinking is sound, and I would think, and I think you're mostly right too. I just think the part that seems broken to me is because you know what your team is and you know you're not a playoff team, and you've had this chance to see who you like, who you don't like in the system, you should be trading from a position of strength, knowing that, hey, we know we can get rid of these guys. It's not going to matter, whatever. And I still don't get that feeling.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Again, I think that the trade deadline is going to be very indicative of what happens here, and if they start making deals well before the trade deadline. Like if they're going to wait until the last possible minute, to me, that's more desperation mode than planning mode. That if you really know what you want and where you're going and who you're willing to part with, you can do that sooner and get ahead of the game.
Yeah, I mean, if there are teams that want to do it sooner, there's nothing holding the Flyers back. There's just not.
No, I don't think so either. But yeah, I think, this weekend against Detroit and Winnipeg were definitely eye opening, I think, in terms of figuring out where this team is right now and starts to show us where they might be looking in the future. I think that it's a really interesting time for the Flyers, and I certainly hope that the team is heading in the right direction. We are going to switch gears and talk about our nemesis of the week. There might have been some hints to it in our discussion thus far, but in the meantime, we will be getting to that next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are in full swing. Go Birds. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, and that is FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. If you're a new customer, join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at fanduel.com/locked on. That's all one word. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets at a bigger chance for a big payout with same game parlay. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So, Eagles fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at fanduel.com/locked on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Russ, we are getting to our nemesis of the week as we do each and every Monday on the show. And if you're newer to Locked On Flyers, what we do on Mondays is look at the week ahead and say who is getting our goat, who is annoying us, or who will be annoying us this week for the Flyers. And last week, we talked about the goaltending situation and when do we get rest for Carter Hart, given their seemingly lack of willingness to play the backup. We saw what they did over this weekend, splitting between Sandstrom and Hart, although, like we said, it was kind of flipped from what we expected.
Yeah.
For me, I have two nemesis this week. The first of which, Flyers related, pushing through this week until the bye week and the All-Star break, which is coming up next week. We got to get through the Kings, the Wild, and another game in Winnipeg against this Jets team that we just faced. So it's a bit of a brutal week ahead for this team.
Yeah, I'll tell you what my nemesis is. I get that the Flyers want to, instill a culture, and I think they're doing that. But right now, they're the 10th worst team in the league, and Buffalo and St. Louis are just ahead of them. You don't want to pass like the second team there because then you're out of the Connor Bedard chances. You have no chance at Connor Bedard, and I just think it would be a horrible season if the Flyers were just good enough that you say, well, I still have questions about next year, and sure, they play hard and have no chance at Connor Bedard. I just think I don't see where there's an intersection where both of those meet and you could be happy. I think they need to stay right around that mark and to have, a theoretical lottery percentage chance. That's so my nemesis is that, John Tortorella doesn't care about that and might let that slip away. And if it does, he's not going to care.
Well, I think part of it too is there's some other teams that are slipping that maybe we wouldn't have expected to, and so the Flyers are kind of moving, up or down in the rankings depending on your perspective
Right.
on what that means, but, in terms of that, I think that, yeah, it's not really anything of the Flyers doing, it's like other teams that are kind of not doing as well recently. We'll see if it levels out as the rest of the season progresses, but I don't think the Flyers are doing anything different right now. They've won obviously a few more games in the last stretch than they have before, but I think it's averaged out so far
Okay.
to where we thought they might be, I think overall.
We'll see.
My second nemesis of the week, which we hinted at, was the Canucks and Bruce Boudreau. Man,
Yeah.
I just what happened with him is just awful, and, like, Bruce Boudreau is a legend in this game, and, just overall has been such a good coach, and I just the way that this happened to him and the fact that they, said, "Oh, we didn't decide until today," and, Rick Tocchet was just, wasn't hired until that morning, like, and they put the press release announcement
Baloney.
out,
Baloney.
like, while Bruce Boudreau was meeting with the team supposedly. It was just awful. The whole thing was awful, and organizations treating people like that, I guess, is the nemesis here.
The flip side's gonna be, well, he's getting paid over $4 million, and, he could put up with that, and,
At this point, does Bruce Boudreau like? I mean, I'm sure he cares about the money, but at the same time, this is the love. Coaching hockey is the love of his life.
right, he doesn't live that high on the hog. He really doesn't, you could tell, and
Yeah.
no, again, look, Rick Tocchet might do a fine job there, but good luck getting a coach that cares that much. I mean, he was crying on the bench, just about
Yep.
crying. Uh, he's gonna be on Sirius XM today talking about it. It's gonna be gut-wrenching. I just again, when you talk to him off camera and before you have him on a show and then you have him on, he will talk about anything. Like, he doesn't care. He just loves the game, promotes the players. It's hard to find a guy like that. And this was definitely planned out because apparently there's a contract that Rick Tocchet couldn't break, and he had to give a certain amount of weeks notice. And like Bruce Boudreau said, like I think it was just 2-3 days ago, I'm not stupid. I know what's going on. So he knew, and the fans knew, and it was nice what the Canuck fans did for him. And it's just a horrible situation,
I
and
know.
it would only happen to the Canucks, honestly.
It's so upsetting. Like, you know, Flyers fans have a lot to burden, but Canucks fans, man,
Yeah,
like, it's it's a lot.
it is a lot.
Alright, wrapping up with a Flyers fun thing. We haven't had a chance to do one in a while, and I just wanna wish, everybody who celebrates a happy Lunar New Year. And, the Flyers, put a post out for it with, a recognition that at least on the Chinese calendar, it's the year of the rabbit. And, so hopefully that means things are gonna be hopping this year.
Oh boy.
That was
All right.
terrible. I
That was a
apologize
bad, bad,
profusely.
bad joke there. Wow.
All right. Well, hate to end it on a note like that, but we're going to. And we'll be back tomorrow. We are going to talk Flyers versus LA Kings, and we'll have our weekly Phantoms check in. They had a winning weekend, so I
They
am
did.
very excited to talk about that. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you got questions, you can tweet us at Lockdown Flyers, email us at lockdownflyers@gmail, post over on YouTube as well. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.